My friend Charlie Widmer and I are both advising a number of businesses as they navigate through this crisis, as well as managing our own vendors. And we've made a habit to talk through these things together, especially as this crisis has increased. So I tend to focus on fractional CFO work and recruiting, while Charlie tends to work on growth opportunities and strategic initiatives for smaller organizations. We thought that recording a version of our ongoing conversation about how businesses can weather the storm and even make progress would be helpful for the community. So here we go. Charlie, I'm really excited to do this with you.
Thanks, Stephen. Always fun to catch up and share ideas, and especially in these wild times. I love our ongoing conversations.
Yeah, absolutely wild times right now. Particularly wild because it actually affects all of our life and not just the business part. I'm actually adjusting to working from a home office that was never intended to be a home office, and trying to explain to a 3-year-old by preschool and also every playground we've ever been to is suddenly closed.
Yeah, we have an 11-month-old at home who's becoming more and more mobile by the day. And so chasing him around, it feels like a full-time job right now, and our options are more and more limited. So yeah, definitely understand that. Work-wise, things are definitely obviously different too. I'm grateful for all the video communications options that we have and cloud-based solutions that made a huge difference. For the companies I work with where we deliver a physical good or service, yeah, those options aren't as helpful. And so we're just dealing with a limited option set and trying to figure it out every day.
Yep. Well, let's jump right into this. What are you seeing companies do broadly in reaction to or in preparation for the crisis?
Yeah. So first, these are super complex times, and above all, I just want to be empathetic. Business owners are experiencing a whole bunch of very real personal, health, and emotional and economic impact. And then from a business perspective, obviously they're managing a huge plate of their businesses, caring for employees, loving their families, and it's really complex and rapidly changing. So I also have no idea where this is going to go, and so I don't really want to try to predict where it's going to go. I want to focus on how companies can prepare themselves to weather whatever storm is coming, or for a lot of companies has already come. And then maybe even make progress during these times. So I've broken this out into 3 phases in my mind. The first phase has to do with managing the initial shock and the direct impact of the health crisis, and that the impact on companies and employees and the associated families. So owners can be asking questions like, how do I care for my employees and their health and wellness? What are our risk factors as a company? Will our customers or supply chain be affected? Will we be shut down for some period of time? Is working remotely even possible? Is the government stimulus going to be relevant for my organization? And how should I be thinking about that? After that first phase around the shock, the second phase has to do with liquidity and cash flow planning. What does my balance sheet look like? Do I have a line of credit in place? What does my cash flow forecast look like? What levers do I have if things get tight? And then running a bunch of different scenarios to try to understand how things could play out. And then the third phase is actually making progress as an organization during these challenging times. Can we develop a new product? Can we build relationships with potential future customers? Can we develop new marketing content? Can we deliver digital content to our customer base in new ways? And so that's the framework I've been using, which I've found helpful to try to get my mind around how organizations can prepare for weathering whatever comes.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. And actually, as you kind of shared this with me earlier in the week, I've actually been using it myself, both for my own organization and then for my clients as I help them sort of just decide like where they are and what they should be focusing on. Really depends on your industry, right? Some organizations, it feels like we're able to manage the shock in terms of hours and maybe a few days, but really they just got back into their they just did all the work they were previously doing from the office. They started to do it at home. Others are still reeling and not sure if they can safely operate or when they're going to be allowed to start operating again. And then still others just have a huge opportunity in front of them and see it as such. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the spread's super wide. I mean, some companies literally can't operate right now. And then other companies, I mean, we're on video conferencing right now as kind of the poster child for products that people are all using all of a sudden. So,
right.
So the spread is super wide. I think some companies are shifting to phase 3 quicker. than others. Those are probably more startups or smaller professional services firms that can be a little more nimble. But those are probably outliers. Most companies are probably in the thick of phase 1 or 2. And those phases, while they may have an initial big hump of activity, they go on. You still have to deal with the initial shock and cash flow realities on an ongoing basis. But you can then start to shift towards maybe phase 2 or 3 as you get over that initial hump.
Well, and as companies start to think particularly about the liquidity planning and then even after that, the opportunities, what do you think they should have in place or get in place to weather the coming storm?
Yeah, in terms of liquidity, I think there's some basic tools that are important to improving decision making, which folks should probably have in place regardless, but especially now. Some sort of cash flow forecast looking out 4 to 6 weeks, or if you can get out to 2 or 3 months, that'd be even better. Financial trend analysis, looking at the historical financials and how they're progressing and trying to identify potential trends there. That probably gets you most of the way there. I think having a good sense for fixed and variable costs is really important right now, as revenue can change dramatically. And then also product profitability. Which products are really the ones that are critical to your success versus others that really don't actually have that big of an impact to the bottom line.
That makes a ton of sense. And I would just say a quick word to organizational leaders. You feel so responsible for your organization, and sometimes the posture is that you should never take on any debt. You should never borrow. And I think that's, it's very, depends on your industry, but I think for some folks right now, maybe that used to have an aversion to borrowing, you should consider borrowing in this moment. If you have access to things like line of credit, or if there are government lending programs that you might have access to, consider using those, right? Like if your organization was doing good before this crisis and the whole organization or just a part of the organization might be going away as a result of this crisis, I think there's an argument to be made that borrowing to survive and then continuing to do good after the crisis is over is a really important and should be considered in your option set, even if you are generally averse to taking on debt. But after the liquidity stuff is solved, Charlie, how do we think about what's next and then the opportunities that might be there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still an open question for a lot of folks. For a lot of companies, you can't responsibly really focus on growth until number 1 and number 2, managing the initial shock and then think about liquidity are addressed at some level, and there's a go-forward plan in place. A few examples of what I've seen in terms of growth, though. I've seen some companies move traditional marketing activities or service offerings into online formats. One example of that is just moving lunch and learn meetings to webinars. I think we've seen a lot of companies do stuff along those lines. We've seen other companies take on longer term projects that are more remote work friendly. That might be developing some sort of digital product that historically has been a back burner project, but all of a sudden now you can make great progress on even remotely.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. And I've actually been amazed at how quickly so many of my clients have moved almost everything online. Things you might not even think could go online. They've figured out ways to do online. So, and it feels like even 24 months ago, the technology might not have been here to make all these things happen. So it's really important that everyone thinks about how this will impact the future of their work, whether it's the basic work environment and where you go to work, or even things like how your services and products fit into the new world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have our favorite video platforms now, and are well versed in whichever one it might be. So yeah, again, I have no idea what's going to happen here. I think playing out a handful of different scenarios and having the ability to adapt is really critical for companies. And of course, not losing sight of who you are and what you're trying to build overall, even as you weather this storm.
Well, thanks so much, Charlie, for taking time to chat and for the perspective. I think, just acknowledging that we don't know what's going to happen, but also remembering who we are and what we're trying to be in our organizations. We're going to keep those two things and hold those two things in tension. I think we'll be able to succeed. So out of this, Charlie and I are going to be doing two things. First, we're going to be putting together a summary of this conversation in a one-page document for reference, and we'll post it on all the social media channels. Secondly, we'll be holding a live ongoing conversation on Fridays around lunchtime. we encourage you to drop by and offer your perspective or just say hello. Keep the faith and good luck, guys.
Yeah, quite literally, we're all in this together. And so, yeah, best of luck, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye.